Just by a show of hands quickly, who's feeling a bit weary of 2020? Huh? Some of you can't even lift your hand up. That's how weary it is, eh? But I'm sure each one of us has experienced so many different emotions and feelings and gone through so much during 2020. And as a church and as friends and family, we want to really see how we can finish this year strong. And that's why, we've titled the series "Finish Strong." And I love this picture of this runner, this athlete. Any of you enjoy running? Yeah, a few. Yeah, not a lot of us. But here's something that I want you to all do as we kick off this morning. I want you to imagine, all right? Imagine with me that you're going to embark on your first marathon, all right? You feeling excited? All right. How many Ks is that? 42 Ks? All right. You're going to do the Auckland Marathon. You're super stoked about it. You've been training for it. You get up early on race day. I think the race kicks off at 5 a.m. But let's just say for this example, it's 7 a.m. So it's a late start. You're excited. You put your running shoes on and you start this awesome journey of running this marathon with I don't know how many thousands of other people, and you're running and you're smiling, you're enjoying it. This is actually something you're enjoying, okay? This isn't torturous for you. You're going well. I'm on the sideline cheering you on and just shouting, hey, keep going, you're doing well. You've done 1K, you've done 2Ks, and you keep going. You run all the way down Devonport. I think that's how the course goes, and eventually through Takapuna, and you head down the motorway, and you come to the bridge, and the bridge is a bit, strenuous as you go up that uphill, but the downhill's even better. And you've done probably about 21 Ks, and you're still feeling good, all right? You still have, your energy levels are high, and you keep going, and you're excited about the finish line, because you're already picturing it. The medal, the trophy that you'll get, the cheering, your friends congratulating you. You probably won't be able to move for a couple of weeks, but hey, the finish line is worth it. And you're nearing close to the finish line. And honestly, now you're inside of the finish line. Now you can actually see the finish line. You're probably only 1 or 2 Ks away from that finish line. And you hear everyone screaming and cheering, and you're just super stoked. But in that time, you just decide, nah, I just can't do it anymore. You're 1K away, and you decide, nah, that's it. I'm just going to quit. You pull out of the race, and you decide, hey, nah, that's enough. How stupid would that be, right? You've done 41 Ks. You only have 1K left. And there's the finish line. There's the medal. There's the achievement. But you decide, hey, I'm just going to pull out. I'm just going to quit the race. And I wanted to share this imaginary story with you because I feel this is our story of faith. This is our journey of faith where at the end of this year, we're so close to the finish line, but so many of us are tired and we're weary, and we're like, man, I just want to throw in the towel. I just want this year done. I just want 2021, as if that's going to change any or everything, right? Can you relate? So many of us just quitting. Maybe it's in our faith journey where we've just been trusting God this whole year, but we're just like, man, I haven't seen God work. I haven't seen anything happen in my life. I've been praying for something over and over again, and I still don't get those answers. Maybe it's a struggle. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's bitterness. Maybe it's unforgiveness. Whatever it is, and you're just like, man, I just want to throw in the towel. And today I want to encourage all of us to not quit when the finish line is in sight. Don't quit when you're only a K away from the finish line. Now, there's this awesome passage in the book of Hebrews called the Hall of Faith. And it speaks about all these characters in the Bible who sort of persevered and completed the race, completed this journey of faith and trust in Jesus. And it goes through a whole list of different characters who were all these, weird and wonderful people who had ups and downs, who had lows and highs, who struggled along, and sometimes they were just, sprinting ahead. And it summarizes all of their life by but faith. But their trust in God kept them motivated. And then after this chapter 11, the author goes to Hebrews chapter 12. And this is sort of going to be our theme passage throughout the whole series. But this is what the author says. He says, therefore, because of all these people that have gone before us, because of all of them who struggled with stuff and still trusted in God, he says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, people who've witnessed and experienced the same stuff that we've gone through, he says, hey, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. He's saying, hey, because we know that other people have actually completed this race, I want you to finish strong. I want you to throw off, get rid of everything that is hindering you, everything that is entangling you, everything that's tripping you up, every bad thought that's coming into your mind, every lie, every false belief that's holding you back from achieving the finish line. He says, I want you to throw that all away. Get rid of it. You're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, people who are cheering you on. And then he says this, he says, and let us run with perseverance. Say the word perseverance. What does that mean? It means to not give up when we're 1K away, right? It's to persevere. It's to continue. It's difficult. He says, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And how are we going to do that? He says, hey, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. He says, I want you to fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of faith. He knows everything, what it entails about our relationship with him. And he says, hey, let's fix our eyes on him. And then he ends off with this verse. He says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. If there's anyone who knew what it meant to be 1K away and to want to quit, it would have been Jesus. But what happened is when he endured the cross, he saw the joy that was set before him. He saw that, hey, if I go to the cross, there's going to be restoration. There's going to be a solution for sin. There's going to be healing. There's going to be hope. There's going to be joy. And so because of this vision that he sees, he says, hey, I'm going to go through this pain. And I'm going to go through this pain because there's so much pleasure on the other side. And he says he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And then the last bit, he says, consider him who endured such opposition from sinners. Someone who can relate with us, who can empathize with us, who also had all these false beliefs or these lies come in and try and hold him back and pull him back and make him throw in the towel. He says, hey, consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Don't grow weary and lose heart when we're almost at the finish line. So if we're thinking of the series Finish Strong, I was thinking, well, what do I start off with? How do I speak about finishing strong? And maybe today, if you even heard the series, you're thinking, hey, finish strong. You're thinking, hey, what can I receive? What can I get that's going to help me to finish strong, right? Because that would be the way we maybe think. But today, I want to maybe share with you that I think the way we're going to finish strong is not what we receive, but actually what we give. What we actually give when we're 1K away and we say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make it to the finish line. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to fix my eyes on Jesus. I'm going to endure and I'm going to experience the joy on the other side. So to do that today, I'm going to kick off with a story. And if you're single, you might like this story because there's hope for you through this story, all right? And it's one of my favorite stories. It's about Abraham. Abraham is one of the, I guess, the matriarchs of the faith. God actually chose him and said, hey, he wants to send him to another nation, and he's going to become the father of many, many nations. He's going to have heaps and heaps of descendants. And Abraham has a son called Isaac, and that's his pride and joy. And at this time, Abraham's actually really old, and he's growing a bit weary. I think he's growing a bit weary because he has this promise from God that he's going to have many sons and I guess many descendants. And Isaac isn't married yet, all right? So he decides he needs to do something about this because obviously Isaac isn't doing anything about it. So he calls his servants in. And Abraham says to his servant, he says, hey, I want you to go and find a wife for my son, Isaac. And the way and where I want you to go is I want you to go back to my hometown, all right, where Abraham was from. He said, I don't want any Canaanite woman for my son. I want you to go back to our hometown, to where my family is, and I want you to find a wife for my son. So can you imagine the servant, the pressure that he's feeling at this time? Like, how do you just go back to a hometown and just choose a wife and bring her back? So he says to Abraham, he says, hey, what happens if she says, hey, she doesn't want to come back? Like, what do I do? And he says, well, if she says she doesn't want to come back, that's okay. Like, don't worry about it. And then he said, well, can't I just take Isaac back to your hometown? And he says, no, you can't do that. All right, you got to bring her back here. And he actually makes an oath, and it's quite an interesting passage if you want to go read it. But he puts his hand under Abraham's thigh, all right, as an oath to say, hey, I'm going to actually do this for you. And so then Abraham goes, and we pick up the story in Genesis 24, and this is what happens. The servant goes, and this is what happens. He said, then he loaded 10 of Abraham's camels with all kinds of expensive gifts from his master, and he traveled to distant Aram Naharaim, all right? So what a way. Like, how am I going to get this woman? What does he do? Huh? He gets camels. That's what I was meaning, all right? And his servant goes, but check this out. He says, then he went to the town where Abraham's brother Nahor had settled. He made the camels kneel beside a well just outside the town. It was evening, and the women were coming out to draw water. So the servant's quite strategic. Yeah, he knows, hey, there's going to be a whole lot of women coming late at night or during dawn to come and collect water. And he decides, hey, I'm going to actually be there, and I'm going to find the right wife for Isaac. But before he does this, he says this very next thing. He prays, because I'm sure he's stressing. It's like, how is this going to even go down? So he says, oh Lord, God of my master Abraham, he prayed, please give me success today and show unfailing love to my master Abraham. Like, please. Like, Abraham's been faithful to you, so please, this is the request. Like, please, God, just show up. And then he makes this request to God. He says, see, I'm standing here beside this spring, and the young women of the town are coming out to draw water. This is my request. I will ask one of them, please give me a drink from your jug. And if she says, yes, have a drink, and I will water your camels too, all right, let her be the one you have selected as Isaac's wife. Wow, this is a bold request, but this is his prayer. He's saying, okay, God, this is my plan, right? I'm going to say this prayer, and if I go and approach a woman and I ask her for a drink, she's not only going to give me a drink, but she's also going to give my camels a drink of water. And then I'll know that this is the woman for Isaac. So this is how I will know that you have shown unfailing love to my master. All right. And so before he had finished praying, isn't this awesome? He's still busy praying, and this happens, all right? He saw a young woman named Rebecca coming out with a water jug on her shoulder, all right? So he's still praying, and he sees Rebecca carrying a water jug. And straight away, she was the daughter of Bethuel, who was the son of Abraham's brother Nahor, and his wife, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I thought Milcah, hey? Milcah, she was a Milcah. Don't know, all right? Next one, Rebecca was very beautiful and old enough to be married. That's a good point, all right? She's old enough to be married, but she was still a virgin. She went down to the spring, filled with her jug, and came up again. So just understand the context, Jeff. This isn't Rebecca just going to the shop and purchasing water. This is Rebecca going and drawing water from a well, filling the jug, putting it on her shoulder, and walking back home. So the servant then, he runs over to her and he says, "Please give me a little drink of water from your jug." Okay? Can you imagine? He's probably shivering or shaking, just a timid guy approaching. And this isn't even for him, all right? This is for Isaac, who isn't even there at the time. Can you imagine this? This is pretty scary. And he goes up and he says, "Hey, please give me a little drink of water from your jug." Cool thing is, Rebecca is very responsive. And this is what she says. "Yes, my lord," she answered. "Have a drink." And she quickly lowered her jug from her shoulder and gave him a drink. I mean, this is game plan. This is working. This is exactly what he prayed for. All right, he's feeling hopeful. And then straight away, check what happens. When she had given him a drink, she said, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink." Wow. This is exactly what the servant had prayed for. Yeah, he sees Rebecca not only giving him a drink of water, but then saying, hey, looking at his camels and saying, "Hey, I'll also give your camels a drink of water." So she quickly emptied her jug into the watering trough and ran back to the well to draw water for all his camels. I just want to underline that again, all his camels, all right? The servant watched her in silence, wondering whether or not the Lord had given him success in his mission. And then at last, when the camels had finished drinking, he took out a gold ring for her nose and 2 large gold bracelets for her wrists. In other words, this is the girl. Other translations say that he actually placed the nose ring on her. I don't know how that went down, okay? But imagine that. All right? But we can read through this story and miss something really significant that I want to encourage us with today. And this is the craziness of what Rebecca is actually doing here. She is really finishing strong. She gets approached by a stranger, a complete stranger, saying, "Hey, can I have a drink of water?" I don't know how your 2020 is currently, but if anyone's asking me of something nowadays, especially as we finish this year, like my schedule's pretty full up, there's lots going on, I'm pretty tired, I don't know, yeah, maybe I can give you a drink of water, maybe I can let you into the traffic, maybe you can take that parking instead, maybe, you can come in front of me at the line at Kmart, but this complete stranger asks us, and Rebecca's response then also is, not only will I give you a drink of water, but I'll also give a drink to your camels. Now, how many camels did the servant have? Can you remember? 10, right? I'm wondering if while she was even saying that and she looked at the camels, she thought, "Oh, man, what did I just say?" Right? When someone asks us to do something, and she didn't even have to do that. He wasn't asking that from her, but she decided, hey, she's going to do that. Now, let me help you understand. All right? I did a few calculations, and one camel, and this is like a really conservative approach to how much camels are actually drinking. This whole calculation is very conservative, all right? So, on average, a camel can drink up to 75 liters and actually even more, all right, in 3 minutes, all right? In 3 minutes. One camel can drink 75 liters or even more in 3 minutes, all right? And so therefore, if there were 10 camels, that would mean that there would be 750 liters, conservatively, all right, that these camels could have drunk during that time. Which is now, as you think about it, like that is quite a big task to do, right? Especially if we look at the jar that she was carrying. And like, I don't know about you guys, but if you look at the buckets that we have, like on average, an average bucket is about 10 liters, right? I'm just going with 15 liters here for the jar. That means Rebecca would have some pretty big biceps, all right? But let's just say she did 15 liters. That means then that's altogether, all right, if we took like 15, each time that she would have to go, sorry, can we go one back kick? All right, so each jar would be 15 liters, all right, that she would have to go to actually give these camels. And then if we added it all up, would get to 750 liters is how much all the camels would drink, and we divide it by 15 liters, which would mean that she would have to do, and this is conservatively estimated, okay, about 50 trips, all right? That's her walking to the trough, where the well, which you'd actually have to draw water. It's not just a tap that you turn on and then go and give this water to the camels, all right? And conservatively estimated then that 50 trips would take about, maybe let's say it would take 3 minutes, because obviously she's got big biceps if she's carrying 15 liters of water on her shoulders. That would mean it would take her about 150 minutes, which would be 2.5 hours of generosity just to give water to the camels. All right? Does that give you a bit of perspective to what she was actually doing here? Like, that's crazy. How many of us are willing to give 2.5 hours extra for a stranger today, not only just to give them a drink of water, but to give their camels, all right? I can only think, because I know this is what I would think, like, while she's, doing this, she's probably muttering and thinking, man, why did I say I'll give these camels a drink as well? And the text, I want to remind you of the text that it said, when they had finished drinking, all right? When they had finished drinking. In other words, they had enough. What this shows me is Rebecca going the extra mile here to finish strong. Now, the story continues, and what we see in this story is that Rebecca doesn't know that, doing this is actually an answer to prayer that he was praying, and that she would actually find a husband who's Isaac, and she actually, goes and marries Isaac. But what's interesting about this story is that you could understand it if Rebecca knew what was on the other side of it, right? That she would find a partner in it, but she doesn't. This is just her finishing strong. This is her just being generous. This is her just going the extra mile. So today, if we had to maybe call Rebecca up on stage and ask her, hey, how would you encourage us as a church, as a community, to finish 2020 strong? What are some things you would share with us? And I think these things would sound like this. The first would be, hey, live generously for others. Live generously for others. Especially as we come into this Christmas season, where we're all about, getting presents, all right? Maybe it's in this season that we need to think, hey, how can I live generously for others? How can I take my time? How can I give my talent? How can I give my finances? How can I give my care? How can I give my forgiveness? How can I give my love for others? In a time where everything will be shouting at us, hey, let us get whatever we need to finish this year strong, I want to encourage us, like Rebecca would say, hey, why don't we live generously for others as we finish this year strong? Why don't we live generously for others? Why don't we make sure we're thinking about others instead of ourselves as we finish this year strong? Maybe another thing that you'd say is, you can't walk the second mile until you've walked the first. You see, maybe some of us are tired as we finish this year, and I can understand that. I can feel that, right? But I mean, what Rebecca would say here is, hey, you can't actually go the extra mile if you haven't even gone the mile. If you haven't even given the stranger a drink of water, you can't be feeding and giving the camels water. What she may be encouraging us here is, hey, don't actually just say, hey, focus on yourself if you haven't even gone 1 mile for someone else. This is the language that Jesus would encourage us with later on, where it'd say, hey, if someone challenges you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles with them. How do we finish the year strong? As we go the 2nd mile. We go the 2nd mile. Maybe Rebecca would also say this. She'd say, give regardless of who is watching. Now, this story would make so much sense to me, all right? If Isaac was a bystander, right? If he was watching her every move, and obviously you could even think of the way she'd be walking, right? As she'd be carrying that water. But no, she does this with every pure motive inside of it. And I know this can mean so much. Give regardless of who is watching. Sometimes we can change our response depending on who is watching, the way we serve, the way we give. Maybe if it's our boss, maybe it's if we're trying to impress someone. But actually what Rebecca would say is, hey, give generously for others, no matter who's watching. Do it for yourself, do it for integrity, do it for God. And then finally, she'd end with this. And she'd say, don't underestimate the impact that a single decision can have. Don't underestimate the impact that a single decision can have. This single decision to say yes to this servant would impact her life completely. Her willingness to go the extra mile was an answer to the servant's prayer. You see, as we finish the year strong, I know that there's so many of us and so many people in our community who are probably praying the prayers of that we actually need to partake in to actually go and meet those needs. Someone is praying for a Rebecca. Someone is praying for you to actually show up with your time and your talents and your generosity to make a difference in their story. And if no one's doing that, if we're all tired, if we all decide, hey, we're going to quit because we're almost at the finish line, but we're going to quit because we're tired, we're weary, then guess what? Who's going to meet those needs? Yes, God can, but God chooses to use us, each and every one of us, no matter who we are, no matter what we've been through, to make a difference in people's lives. So to end today, I want to ask us this question. Maybe Rebecca's asking this question to us. She's saying, hey, what story do you want to tell as you end 2020? What story do you want to tell as you end 2020? Wouldn't this be such a cool story for Rebecca to actually share with her kids one day? To say, man, this was actually a setup. This was a setup by God, me going the extra mile. What kind of a story do you want to tell as you end 2020? Do you want to share a story of, wow, I'm so glad we got through that year? Or do you want to tell a story where, you know what, there were only 3 or 4 weeks left, and I decided, hey, I'm going to put my trust and my faith in God, and I'm going to go the extra mile. I'm going to live generously in this time. I'm going to step into that faith zone where I'm not leaning on my own understanding, on my own needs and wants and everything that I want in life, but I'm going to trust in a God who is so much bigger than that. I'm going to say, hey, God, use me in every opportunity. Help me to not underestimate the value of a single decision. A single decision that I can make today in the supermarket, this afternoon, when I go home, wherever we are. How do you want to finish this year? What story do you want to tell as you end 2020? My encouragement is that you end 2020 living generously for others. And so how does that look? Well, maybe that means today as you leave, you actually have to go and apologize. You actually need to give forgiveness to someone. Maybe that means, hey, I need to let go of that bitterness. I need to live generously with grace that changes everything. Maybe it's like, hey, I really do have so much and there's so many people in need. I need to give some of the stuff I have to make a difference in people's lives. Maybe that means I actually have to open my wallet and something that I thought, hey, I'll use for myself, I'll actually take and I'll use for someone else to make a difference in their life. How do you want to finish 2020? Today, I believe that, God wants to use our stories to finish strong. Imagine if each one of us just chose to finish 2020 strong and do one thing, one decision. When we're tempted to give up or to turn away, or Rebecca could have so easily said, hey, I'd love to help, but I just can't. I have to get this water home. I'm sorry. Imagine if she did that, but imagine if we can be like her and respond and just say, yes, sure. And how about I go the extra mile and do something else for you? That's what I think God is encouraging us with as we finish strong, that we will live generous lives for others. God, today, you speak to us in a way that I can't speak. You speak to our hearts. You speak to the areas of our lives that really need to be addressed, God. And today, as we try and look to the finish line and we want to finish the year strong, I pray that we'll finish the year strong with our arms open, with our hands open, and just say, hey, God, just use me in whatever capacity you want me to be used. God, I pray that there'll be significant stories of the last couple of weeks of 2020, how you showed up in ways where we left our comfort zone and we just trusted in you, God. And God, may there be people who would be impacted. This year, God, I've experienced this generosity from others. Times when I've been down, times where it's been difficult, I've seen that generosity from others, God, and I pray that generosity can continue to flourish through this church and through the community, God. So will you use us, is our prayer in Jesus' name.